Don't skip this video. A simple woman from the rural Midwest collapsed in front of America's largest jewelry store, but what she revealed when she got up paralyzed the country. At 48, Emily discovered she wasn't who she thought she was, and that her true origin was linked to an empire hidden for 3 decades. And what she found inside a secret safe will shake your emotions. Subscribe to our channel now and follow a real story of betrayal, courage, and reunion that will give you goosebumps. The sun beat down on Fifth Avenue that Wednesday afternoon. The humidity preceding the summer rain stuck to the clothes of hurried passers-by. Gleaming shop windows reflected the ceaseless coming and going of executives, tourists, and workers who barely looked at each other. No one seemed to notice Emily Peterson, with her dusty boots and skin marked by the Midwestern sun, until the dry sound of her body falling on the Italian marble sidewalk broke the urban monotony. "Ma'am, you can't enter like this," said the older security guard at Peterson & Sons Jewelry, while his younger colleague adjusted his suit after pushing her out of the establishment. "Appointment clients only." Emily, at 48, didn't shed a single tear. She adjusted the rustic cotton scarf she carried in her hands and firmly gazed at the younger security guard. From her neck hung a leather cord with an old yellowed ID badge. "My name is Emily Peterson," she said in a calm yet firm voice. "I'm the daughter of William Peterson, founder of this jewelry store." The silence that followed was as dense as the humid air of the Manhattan landscape. The older security guard, recognizing that surname, instantly turned pale. His knees weakened, and in a gesture mixing respect and fear, he knelt before her. "Miss Emily, Mr. Williams' daughter," he whispered, as some passers-by began filming the unusual scene with their cell phones. What no one could imagine was that this simple woman, with calloused hands from working the land, had spent the last 30 years of her life believing she was merely the adopted niece of George, a reclusive farmer from rural Missouri. Her true story had begun to reveal itself only 3 weeks earlier, when she found a hidden safe after her uncle's passing. In the small town of Golden Fields, 200 miles from Kansas City, Emily had grown up among pecan orchards and local crafts. Uncle George, a man of few words and many silences, never spoke about his family in New York, claiming only that some stories are better left untold. It was while tidying her uncle's room after his eternal slumber that Emily found a small safe embedded in the wall behind a picture of the Virgin Mary. Inside were yellowed letters, old documents, newspaper clippings from 3 decades ago, and a handwritten confession by George himself. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer in this world. There's a truth I've kept all these years to protect you. You're not my niece. You're the legitimate daughter of William Peterson, my cousin, the greatest jewelry craftsman in this country. What happened to your father wasn't an accident, nor a journey of no return, as the newspapers say. It was a coup, and you are the true heir to everything he built." Her uncle's words, written in the trembling handwriting of his final days, demolished the world Emily knew. Among the documents, she found an original birth certificate, photos of an elegant man holding a baby in his arms, and newspaper clippings about the mysterious disappearance of America's most respected jeweler. The farm, which had always been her home, suddenly seemed like a gilded prison, a forced hideout. Memories began to make sense. Her uncle's excessive care to prevent her from traveling to New York, his discomfort when she mentioned jewelry, his insistence that she remain anonymous in the rural Missouri lands. "Why, Uncle? Why hide me for so long?" She questioned the wind sitting on the porch of the adobe house as the sun set behind the walnut trees. It was Mrs. Connie, the cook who had accompanied the family for decades, who finally filled in the gaps that the documents had left. "Your uncle promised your father he'd protect you, child. When the partners forced Mr. William out of the company, they threatened to harm you too. You were just a child. Your father preferred you to grow up far from that world of greed." For an entire week, Emily barely slept, devouring every word in the documents, trying to reconstruct a history she never knew was hers. One name was constantly repeated: Thomas Mitchell, the partner who, along with 2 other businessmen, had taken control of Peterson & Sons after William's disappearance. On the small television in the living room, she watched a report about the 50th anniversary of America's largest luxury jewelry chain. Thomas Mitchell, now a silver-haired gentleman, was receiving an Entrepreneur of the Year award. William Peterson, who started, "This dream would be proud of what we've built," he said, with a smile Emily found repugnant. That night, the decision was made. She sold some cattle, bought a bus ticket, and hit the road toward New York, taking only a backpack, the cotton scarf. That had belonged to her mother, and William's old ID badge found among the documents. Back on the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue, Emily was now surrounded by curious onlookers. The video of the kneeling security guard was already going viral on social media, with the caption, "Countrywoman claims to be jewelry empire heir, and security guard kneels." "Please, stand up," she asked the guard. "I didn't come looking for reverence, I came looking for truth." Before she could continue, a black limousine abruptly stopped at the curb. From it emerged an elegant woman in her 30s, black hair tied in a perfect bun, and eyes showing both curiosity and determination. "Ms. Emily, my name is Lauren Taylor. I'm an attorney. I think we need to talk." The young woman offered an impeccably printed card. "My father worked with William Peterson for 20 years. When I saw the video that's circulating, I knew I needed to find you." Emily looked around. The crowd was growing. Cell phones pointed at her like modern spears. For the first time since leaving Golden Fields, she felt a thread of hope. "If you knew my father, you know he would never abandon the company willingly," said Emily, holding the ID badge hanging from her neck. "I know that better than anyone," replied Lauren. "My father kept evidence all these years, hoping that someday the truth might come to light. Now you're here, and you'll need help to face what's coming." The buzz around them increased. Employees of the jewelry store watched in astonishment from the door. A man in an impeccable suit was nervously talking on the phone while looking at the scene. "This story isn't going to end with a simple apology, is it?" asked Emily, feeling the weight of 3 decades of lies on her shoulders. "No," smiled Lauren, opening the limousine door. "This story has barely begun." Lauren Taylor's office on the 22nd floor of a building in the Upper East Side was a balanced mixture of modernity and tradition, just like its owner. Educated at the best universities, the young lawyer kept in the corner of the room a small altar, with photos of her father, Sebastian Taylor, former goldsmith of Peterson and Sons. "My father always said that the true value of a jewel isn't in the material but in the hands that created it," commented Lauren while serving tea to Emily. "He never believed the official story about your father." Emily observed the city through the panoramic window. New York was a distant world from the Missouri plains. "Why did you decide to help me? A lawyer with your prestige doesn't need complicated cases." Lauren smiled, opening a carefully organized folder. "Because I grew up hearing about the injustice done to your father. And because—" she briefly hesitated. "Because William Peterson saved my father's life when no one else believed in him." From the file, Lauren removed old documents, including the original partnership contract for the jewelry store. "See this clause?" She pointed to an almost imperceptible paragraph. "In case of unproven disappearance of any of the partners, their direct heirs maintain full rights to the shares." "They knew this when they sent me to the countryside?" questioned Emily, outraged. "They knew every comma of this contract. The strategy was to isolate you, hoping you would never discover the truth." The two women spent entire days analyzing documents, hiring private investigators, and locating former employees of the jewelry store. The story that emerged was much darker than Emily could have imagined. William Peterson had been the victim of a meticulously planned conspiracy. His partners, led by Thomas Mitchell, had forged signatures, diverted company resources, and when William discovered the irregularities, they orchestrated his removal. According to witnesses from that time, your father was threatened. "They said that if he didn't leave quietly, you would pay the price," explained Lauren, showing confidential testimonies. "Uncle George was the only person your father trusted to protect you." As the investigations progressed, the press continued to exploit the story of the country heiress, as some tabloids had nicknamed her. Speculative reports emerged daily, some romanticizing the story, others questioning Emily's legitimacy. "We need a communication strategy," suggested Lauren after seeing another sensationalist headline. "The more they control the narrative, the less credibility we'll have." It was then that Emily made a bold decision. She would accept the invitation from Regina Morris, host of Naked Truth, the most watched primetime talk show. Lauren tried to dissuade her, fearing that the exposure could harm the legal case they were building. "Trust me," said Emily with a serenity that surprised even herself. "I spent 30 years listening to stories on the farm porch. I know when it's time to tell my own." The studio was packed that night. Under the intense lights and before millions of viewers, Emily maintained the same dignity she had demonstrated on the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue. She wore simple but elegant clothes chosen by Lauren, a middle ground between her rural past and her new reality. "So, Emily, America wants to know, what's it like to discover at 48 that you're the heir to an empire?" asked Regina with her characteristic direct tone. "Regina, I didn't come here to talk about material inheritance. I came to talk about inheriting values, truth. My father didn't abandon the company willingly. He was pushed out by people who placed greed above honesty." With calm and precision, Emily began to present the documents she had brought: copies of manipulated financial statements, internal correspondence mentioning solving the William problem, and, most impactful, a diary from Uncle George himself, revealing details of the threats. "My uncle wrote that the night before my father's official disappearance, he received a phone call. William was crying, saying he had obtained evidence of the embezzlement, but that Thomas Mitchell had made it clear that if he didn't disappear, I wouldn't be safe." The audience watched in absolute silence. Regina Morris, known for interrupting her interviewees, let Emily conduct the narrative. The impact was immediate. Hashtags like Justice for William and Return Emily's Father dominated social media within minutes. At the end of the interview, when Regina asked what her intentions were, Emily looked directly at the camera. "I don't want revenge, I want justice. I want the people who buried the truth along with my father's reputation to face the consequences. And above all, I want to know if my father is really gone, or if, as I'm beginning to suspect, he might be alive somewhere protecting himself from those who betrayed him." The program had barely ended when Thomas Mitchell, watching from the comfort of his mansion in the Hamptons, called an emergency meeting with his lawyers and directors. Emily's interview had been devastating for the company's image. Peterson and Sons shares plummeted 15% in aftermarket trading. "Offer her $50 million. She comes from the countryside. She's never seen so much money," ordered Thomas, pouring himself some whiskey. "With all due respect, sir," said one of the younger executives, "I think underestimating this woman may be our biggest mistake. She doesn't seem motivated by money." "Everyone has a price," retorted Thomas. "Find hers." The next morning, while having coffee in the small kitchen of the apartment Lauren had rented for her, Emily received an unexpected visit. An elegant lady appearing to be in her well-lived 70s asked to enter. "My name is Claire Wilson," she introduced herself with a strong southern accent. "I was very close to your father, perhaps closer than many imagine." Emily offered a cup of coffee, observing the blue eyes that seemed to evaluate every detail of the environment. "You have his eyes," said Claire, accepting the drink, "and the same stubbornness from what I see on television." "Did you know my father well? Well enough to know that William Peterson is alive." The cup Emily was holding escaped from her hands, shattering on the floor. The sound of breaking porcelain was the only thing to break the silence that followed. How can you be sure?" stammered Emily, trying to maintain her composure. Claire took a yellowed envelope from her purse. "Because I've been receiving these letters for 20 years. No return address, just a small watermark, a hummingbird, the same one your father used as a signature on his exclusive jewelry pieces." Inside the envelope, the last letter, dated just 3 months ago. The handwriting, although trembling, was unmistakably similar to the letters Emily had found in Uncle George's safe. "He's in a small town about 300 miles from here. He lives under the name Michael Stewart. He runs a craft school for underprivileged youth, explained Claire, caressing the envelope as one touches a relic. I never went to visit him, as he asked, but I keep every word he wrote. Emily felt the world spinning around her. Why are you telling me this now? Claire's eyes moistened. Because yesterday, when I saw you on television, I realized that William deserves to know the wonderful woman his daughter has become, and because... She hesitated, revealing an unexpected vulnerability. Because the last letter said he wasn't in good health, that maybe it was time to face the past. That same afternoon, ignoring Lauren's advice to wait, Emily put some clothes in a small suitcase and rented a car. The destination, Hope Ridge, a small town on the border between New York and Pennsylvania, known for its silver craftsmanship. Are you sure you want to go alone? Asked Lauren, concerned. We've been receiving veiled threats since the interview. Emily hugged her friend. Some journeys need to be solitary to make sense. I'll be back in 3 days, I promise. What Emily didn't know was that, as she drove down Interstate 80, a black car was discreetly following her, and that in the meeting room of Peterson & Sons, Thomas Mitchell was receiving an alarming phone call. She's going to Hope Ridge. It seems she's discovered about Michael Stewart. The old businessman turned pale. Stop her. Use any means necessary, but don't let her reach him. The road wound through the mountains as the evening painted the sky with orange tones. Emily kept her eyes fixed on the horizon, with a mixture of anxiety and hope beating in her chest at the same rhythm as the wheels on the asphalt. The radio played an old country song that her Uncle George used to whistle during harvests. Those melodies now seemed to connect two worlds she never imagined belonged to the same story, rural Missouri and the corporate secrets of New York. When passing a sharp curve, her eyes caught in the rearview mirror the high beams of a car that had been following her since the last gas station. Coincidence, she initially thought, but the persistence of the black vehicle triggered an instinctive alert. Remembering Lauren's warnings, she decided to test her suspicions and drastically reduced her speed. The car also slowed down, maintaining a calculated distance. With her heart racing, Emily spotted a small dirt road to the right and in a sudden movement turned the wheel without signaling. Dust rose as she accelerated down the narrow path, observing the black car go straight past the exit, apparently surprised by the maneuver. Taking advantage of the momentary advantage, she continued along secondary trails, guided more by intuition than by the cell phone map, which barely captured Co's signal in that region. After almost an hour on back roads, Emily finally reached Hope Ridge through an alternative access. The small town looked like it had come out of a postcard of colonial America. Colorful mansions, a church in the central square, old lampposts that were beginning to light up with the arrival of night. She parked near the square and asked an old man selling crafts about Michael Stewart's school. Master Michael? Everyone knows him, smiled the man, pointing to a steep street. Up there, last house before the woods. You can't miss it. It's the only one with a glass roof, for natural light to enter the studio. Following the directions, Emily soon spotted the peculiar construction. An old farmhouse remodeled with a translucent roof extension that captured the last rays of sunlight. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the carved wooden gate where a simple sign announced Hummingbird Arts Center, training in goldsmithing and gem cutting. Before she could knock on the door, she heard the sound of delicate hammers and young laughter coming from the back of the property. Following the noise, she went around the house and found an open shed where about 10 teenagers were working concentratively at small benches, while a man with his back turned, graying hair and slightly curved posture, was guiding a young man on the correct polishing technique. Always respect the nature of the stone, he was saying, in a voice that even aged caused an immediate impact on Emily. Don't impose your will on it. Discover what shape it wants to reveal itself. Paralyzed by emotion, Emily couldn't utter a single word. It was one of the students, who noticed her presence and alerted the master. Professor Michael, there's a visitor. When the man turned around, time seemed to freeze. The same brown eyes that Emily saw every morning in the mirror now stared at her, wide with surprise and tearful with instant recognition. 30 years had deeply marked William Peterson's face, but the essence remained intact in the expression lines that deepened when he whispered, Emily. My daughter? In the small living room of the house, after dismissing the students with the excuse of a family emergency, father and daughter were finally alone, separated only by a rustic wooden table and 3 decades of absence. "How did you find me?" he asked, serving tea in handcrafted mugs. "Claire Wilson." A melancholic smile appeared on the aged face. "I always knew she would be the bridge when the time came." He studied his daughter's face. "You're the image of your mother. Why did you never come back for me?" The question came out direct, without beating around the bush, carried by the weight of a lifetime of absence. William lowered his eyes to his hands, calloused, artisanal, marked by time and meticulous work. At first because the danger was real, later out of cowardice. When I learned you were growing up well, protected, happy, I feared my return would bring more pain than joy. His voice faltered. With each passing year, it became harder to explain why I remained hidden. Emily absorbed each word, each gesture, like someone trying to memorize a map to navigate an unknown territory. The territory of truth so long denied. "Did Uncle George know you were alive?" "In the first years, yes. Then we lost contact for safety. I received news about you through an old mutual friend." He hesitated. "I learned you became a strong, independent woman. I was proud from afar, imagining what it would be like to hear your voice." The following hours were filled with stories: the meticulously planned escape after the threats, the years of reconstruction under a new identity, the craft school founded to pass on the knowledge he could no longer share, under his true name. "When I saw your interview on television," William smiled, emotional, "I knew the cycle was closing, that you had found your way back, but I feared Thomas and the others would discover my whereabouts." "That's exactly what happened," confirmed Emily. "I was followed here. We need to leave now." As if to confirm her words, headlights illuminated the living room window. Our car was parking outside. Meanwhile, in New York, Lauren Taylor was experiencing hours of anguish. After losing contact with Emily, she decided to take drastic measures. Using her contacts in the FBI, she gained access to confidential information about the financial structure of Peterson & Sons. What she discovered went far beyond what they had imagined: an elaborate network of money laundering, tax evasion, and fraudulent contracts with ghost suppliers. The jewelry empire served as a facade for much darker operations. "We need an urgent injunction," she explained to a judge she trusted, showing the documentation gathered. "There's sufficient evidence for a search and seizure warrant at the company headquarters, and I fear for my client's safety." The magistrate, impressed with the evidence, not only granted the injunction but also authorized the preventive blocking of the personal accounts of Thomas Mitchell and the other directors involved. Simultaneously, former employees of the jewelry store, inspired by Emily's courage on television, started a movement on social media. Using the hashtag #FoundersDaughter, they shared memories of William Peterson and denounced dubious practices of the current administration. The movement took unexpected proportions when craftsmen from all over the country joined the cause, transforming it into a symbol of the struggle for the preservation of the traditional American jewelry craftsmanship against predatory industrialization. And it was precisely one of these former employees, now retired, who provided Lauren with the most valuable information: the exact location of a warehouse where incriminating documents would be stored. "Thomas always kept insurance against his own partners," revealed the former accountant. "Parallel records to use as blackmail if necessary." Armed with this information and a judicial warrant, Lauren personally led the operation that would definitively change the course of history. Back in Hope Ridge, Emily and William were preparing to escape through the back of the property when the front door opened. Both froze, expecting the worst. "Emily, Mr. William?" Lauren's familiar voice echoed through the house. "Are you here? It's us." To the duo's surprise, Lauren entered accompanied by 2 federal agents and a district attorney. Her face showed exhaustion, but also an undeniable triumph. "It's over," she announced, hugging Emily. "Thomas Mitchell and the other directors were detained this morning. We found everything: the adulterated original documents, records of threats, offshore accounts, sufficient evidence to keep them in prison for decades." William Peterson, hearing those words, let himself fall into a chair as if an invisible weight was finally removed from his shoulders. 30 years, he murmured. 30 years, hiding out of fear of these men. The man who followed me, began Emily. He was one of Thomas's henchmen, yes, confirmed Lauren, but he was intercepted on the road by federal agents. He was coming to... She hesitated, looking at William. To eliminate any chance of your testimony. That night, father and daughter could finally sleep without fear, protected by a police team that mounted guard around the property. The next morning, news of the Peterson and Sons scandal dominated all the country's news, along with the surprising revelation that the founder was alive and had been found. 3 months later, the noble hall of Peterson and Sons on Fifth Avenue was unrecognizable. The showcases that once displayed expensive jewelry now showed the artisanal creation process, with small educational videos and samples of American gemstones in their raw state. In the center of the space, a photographic exhibition told the story of William Peterson and the craftsmen who helped build the company. On an improvised stage, Emily, alongside her father and Lauren, addressed journalists, employees, and curious onlookers. Today, I officially resume control of the company that bears my family's name, but not to get rich nor to avenge the past. Today, I announce the creation of the William Peterson Foundation, which will transform this chain of stores into training centers for young craftsmen from all over America. The audience applauded enthusiastically when William, visibly moved, complimented. For 3 decades, I hid out of fear. Now I realize that the true legacy isn't in the jewelry we create, but in the knowledge we share and the lives we transform. The doors that once served only a privileged few will now be open to those who wish to learn. The project envisioned that each former store in the chain would be converted into a manual arts school, focusing on traditional American techniques, not just jewelry making, but also ceramics, weaving, and other cultural manifestations at risk of disappearing. The profit generated by the sale of pieces produced by the students would be reverted to scholarships and to the preservation of the country's artisanal heritage. When journalists asked if Emily would abandon her farm in Missouri to take over the foundation's direction in New York, she smiled, adjusting the cotton scarf she still carried with her. The administrative headquarters will be here, but my heart and my hands will remain on the land. We're going to expand the farm in Golden Fields to receive students who want to learn about the relationship between the Midwest and our traditional craftsmanship. After all, without strong roots, no tree blooms. As she was leaving the press conference, Emily was approached by a group of young salespeople from the old jewelry store. A shy girl stepped forward. "Ms. Emily, we would like to give you this." She extended a small handcrafted box. All of us on the team contributed to make this piece. Inside the box, a delicate brooch of gold and American gemstones formed the silhouette of a woman with open arms between a hummingbird and a walnut tree, symbols that united the urban and rural history of the Peterson family. "To remind you that your courage gave us back the pride of working here," explained the young woman. Weeks later, settled again on the porch of the farm in Golden Fields, Emily watched the sun set behind the Midwest trees, her father sitting beside her, also in silence, contemplating the same horizon. The brooch received from the employees gleamed on her cotton scarf. "I still can't believe we're here together," she said finally. William smiled, touching his daughter's hand with the delicacy of someone touching a precious stone. "Did you know that the walnut tree can live more than 200 years? Even when it seems to have dried on the surface, its roots remain alive, waiting for the right moment to flourish again." In the distance, the first students of the newly inaugurated Midwest Art School worked in the shed that had once housed tractors. Now it housed dreams, ancestral techniques, and the future of a legacy that refused to disappear. Some stories seem to end, reflected Emily, but in reality they just gain new chapters. Dear listeners, we hope that Emily and William's story has touched your hearts. To follow this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking on your left. If you liked this narrative, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like to the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life, the strength of family bonds, and the power of truth. Don't miss our upcoming content. We're eager to read your comments.